that I highly encourage you that you share your questions there, and please also indicate it now, just with a yes or no, that you can hear us. Everything is fine, just because we are all there. Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much for both of you. Okay, wonderful. You're all very, very attentive. So without even further ado, I would like to ask Walter Alnagar to start and give a short presentation and then we'll follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Walter Alnagar. I'm the founder of Fondazione Mater and Good Food for All Europe. Fondazione Mater is in Geneva, and Good Food for All Europe is in Bruxelles. So I would like to welcome everyone to this first coalition webinar. Over the past month, we built this coalition one piece at a time. We started in August. And today we are at 233 members. The reach of this group says everything about the urgency of our work. Across Europe, different organizations and social movements engaged in different dimensions of the food system see the same reality. That too many people struggle to access good food. Me, for example, I see it from a kitchen, as I am also a cook, and I cook in a social restaurant called Refettorio. And that is why we got together in May 2024 in Geneva during the second Democratic Forum on the Right to Food to create this European Citizen Initiative, which hopefully today you will understand exactly what it is. Back then, which is not that long ago, in fact, more than 60 organizations gathered to advocate and for the realization of the right to food. And to use the ECI as a tool to unite all the struggle across Europe. And to do that, we created this instrument to demand the UN institution to finally fulfill the right to food as a human right and not just as an appendix. Today, we are only 20 days from the 7th of January when the signature collection opened. These next few weeks will shape the strength of the entire campaign. A united and coordinated start will give us momentum and credibility. And that is why this webinar is very important and hopefully going to make the difference. So today we have a very dense agenda with some big names. The first one will be Michael Windfuhr of the German Human Rights Institute. With Juan Echanove from FAO, he is the lead of the Right to Food team. They will open with the Foundation of the Right to Food. Then we have Almudena from FIAN Europe, which will put the right to food into the European policy contest. Then we have Olga from the Animal Advocacy and Food Transition, which will explain how the ECI function, being a veteran of this mechanism. Then we have Ramona from Eco Ruralis, that will speak about the coalition and the role of the national focal points. Then we have Hélène from Action contre la Faim. She will present the campaign voluntary guidelines, which are being shared with you, and hopefully you had a look. And for the main course, we will have Beatrice from KeerWeb, which will introduce the visual identity and the campaign materials, which hopefully you all gonna like. Then we have Flavia, which will speak about the role of youth and the mobilization tools. And finally, we will have Saverio from Città dell'Arte, which will explain what happened on the 7th of January during the first day of the campaign. And then some practicality. So we have a Q&A section, which will be around 25, 30 minutes, in which we'll try to pick up the most interesting question from the chat. But you can use the chat from now already. And each one of us that you see right now will try to answer in our capacity, depending on how many questions you guys are going to ask. If we cannot ask everything today, as right now there is already 75 people connected, I will be sure to gather everything and to somehow answer via email. Tomorrow I will also distribute via email the registration of this video. And if you will have further question, I will be on duty until the 7th of January, regardless of Christmas and New Year.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
so I guess we can start with
Michael.
Michael.
Yes, thank you very much, Walter. And so indeed, once more, I would just like to encourage you that in case you have any questions, feel free to write it in the question and answer. And indeed, if we don't have the time now today to answer, there will be no questions left unanswered. We will definitely come back to you. So please, Juan and Michael, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Michael, we can.
I
Yes.
was interrupted. And can you see my presentation?
Also,
Okay. I have a short moment. You have asked me to start, maybe because I was the first employee of FIAN in 1887 when the work of the Right to Food as a civil society movement started. And I'm now a member of the UN Committee on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights. And I have contributed here and there to the development of the normative framework of the understanding of it. And I'm asked to maybe give you a short idea what is at the core of the right to food and why it has been developed and why it is so important and what can be done with this framework, because we have a very well developed framework in the last 30, 40 years. That's what we have achieved. The implementation is pending in each state on the willingness of governments, on the strength of civil society, and the let's say the struggle we have to implement human rights. That's the case. But to show that we have a good framework, let me just give you some ideas, and I made a presentation which is a bit longer. You are all encouraged to read it later, and if you have questions, come back to me. Yeah, that's always possible to answer this. Yeah, so the right to food is already recognized in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 48 as part of a right to an adequate standard of living. Later, it has been integrated in one of the two core covenants on economic, social, cultural rights, which has been made to implement the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into a binding tool. And today we have 173 states parties which are bound by this. And the right to food is part of the article. Can you still hear me? Yeah.
Yes, Michael.
It's part of the Article 11, right to an adequate standard again. Yeah, so it's then what is really needed. And we have to mention that the right to food has been recognized for the first and foremost also in the Rome-based agencies at the World Food Summit in 1996. And in order to clarify what this means, the World Food Summit was even asking our committee to draft a general comment on the right to adequate food, which has been adopted then in 2099, with strong support also from civil society organizations and the FAO at that time. Later, to make a practical guide to implement this general comment, and I will come back to the content of it in a minute, by voluntary guidelines, which has been developed in the FAO context by saying, well, we have a good legal interpretation now, but what does it mean for different policy areas which are relevant for the realization of the right to food? So the right to food guidelines has been developed as an implementation guide. Last year, we were celebrating the 20th anniversary of this. And subsequently, since then, in the Committee on World Food Security, a lot of standards has been developed for certain aspects like land, responsible investment, gender, food systems. So all this has been developed, and we have a dense understanding now. What would it mean if states would responsibly implement the right to adequate food? Just to recall, the definition is say the right to adequate food is realized when every man, woman, child, alone and in community with others, very important, have physical and economic access at all times to adequate food or means for its procurement. I think this sentence is extremely important because it talks about access to food, but also for means of its procurement. For most of us, particularly in Europe, it's the access for means to its procurement. Maybe, as you can see below, you can produce food your own, have your own income as self-employed person, then it's a direct relation, maybe as farmers. But you can also are dependent on a wage income where it's important that you get a sufficient living wage, really, and not only a minimum wage, so that you can supply your food. Or you can get, if you are too old, too young, or other reasons why you can't work at that moment, you can have a transfer income. So social security rules are important, and all these elements are incorporated into the general comment. And it says the right to adequate food shall therefore not be interpreted in any narrow or restricted sense, which equates it with a minimum package of calories or proteins or other specific nutrients. It has to be right to adequate food. I think that is important. The general comment then describes that every state party has obligations, and you see it in the left column. You see we have respect, protect, fulfill. That is the terminology developed for the right to food and later used by the Committee for all other human rights or economic, social, and cultural rights. Respect means the state itself should not violate the right to food. Don't move people, don't discriminate them in access to adequate food, don't discriminate women land rights or so the state policies themselves should not hinder people to feed themselves. I think that is the basic core, and it is also Secondly, you have to control third parties. So if they are food industry, if you have houses for elderly who supply food, or if there are children who get school meals, all these needs to be regulated that it is adequate food, and that it reaches to the people, And fulfill means for all those who are currently have problems in access to adequate food, the state has to do two things. First, create an enabling environment where they either can survive as farmers or you have a decent job that needs to be created. Or if you are not able to take care for yourself or your family, there is also the need to provide food for them. Also having a social security system which is also decent in access and allows you to have really adequate food if you need this. And I don't go to the two other columns. It describes that the same state obligations don't only exist at the national level, so in Germany for Germans, but also for people living in our country, but also in the international cooperation and extraterritorial. So it needs to be also respected, protected, and fulfilled at that level, but it would go too much into the details. What is important is really.
But could you please click on your second? Sorry, I don't speak German, but because we see it in a presentation mode as a and not so we see both of your screens. So just exactly the second upper panel, the Anzeigenstellungen. If you click on that,
But I had it in the presentation.
Because some participants were requesting so they can see it better.
It's
where shall I do?
On top there is like a small stand with where there is this icon. On top, on the left. There is
next to the orange button, the fourth one, next to the save one.
No, I don't see it.
It's an icon. It's on top where there is this orange thing on the left. Move on the left and you go up.
Top left corner.
Top left corner. Go a bit right, and there is a small stand with a play. You see it? That one.
Yeah, but I had used that.
Yes, but that's why I was telling you to click on the second one, the word I just said out, that because we had with another speaker the same thing. So the Anzeigenstellungen, if you click on that.
Do you see it now?
It's the same.
It has changed for me. So on my screen, it is changing.
No worries. Let's keep on because unfortunately we don't have much time.
Yeah, I'm sorry for this.
So no worries. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, okay. So I was saying when it comes to the core normative content, it's these elements which are so important and good described in the general comment. Food needs to be available in a sustainable manner. So you have to have it. And states have to make sure that it is available. It needs to be accessible. You should have physical or economic access to it, so that you're not hindered. So physical would be also meaning for elderly, for example, in houses that they have a fair access to it. Affordability means you don't have to be as a family make decisions. Do I go to the doctor this week, or do I have something to eat, or do I can pay my energy bill when housing is becoming too costly? It needs to be the package, which is okay. And then the quality is important. Food needs to be nutritious, culturally acceptable, and also safe, that it's not unhealthy. So these are the criteria which all has been developed, and one could go into all the details. I will not do it. Also important is that the covenant says we need to implement the things progressively. So the state has to show that it is increasingly investing more and more into this. It has to prove that it is using the maximum of available resources. I think that is the core criteria which we as a committee are applying. And if you then look maybe how few some states are investing in social security, in the delivery of food and making sure, or that they have not adequate rules for guaranteeing quality of food with maybe the industry, all this can be checked when you look at the maximum of available resources. And all implementation has to be non-discriminatory. So if you put this all together, then you can see we have a core elements of a human rights-based approach implementing these standards. Yeah, so we have to states have to focus on the most vulnerable, marginalized, make a precise analysis. Who are those who are most effective, and have adequate policies in place to really support particularly these groups. And this is hardly done in any of the European states at an adequate level. Monitoring needs to be done by the state itself, but can also be done by civil society organizations or national human rights institutions. And there should be also, let's say, enforceability of these levels. So you have to have maybe rights to complain if you are not getting the right food in houses of elderly, of kids. All this needs to be implemented. So we need really a food systems approach, and this will deal with a lot of policy areas which needs to be adjusted. Yeah, agricultural policies, social policies, minimum wages, food policies, consumer protection. That is one of the reasons why it seems to be complicated to implement the right to food. But what you have to do is implementing this human rights-based approach in all these policy areas. Look what the state has to do it. Yeah, how, if they are implemented, if they are really looking into what are their obligations and what are their capacities. And if they not use the maximum of available resources, this can be seen as a violation of the right to food. So this is a toolbox which allows you or us as civil society organizations to check states' performance in all these areas which are relevant. And for each state, even at the European level, it will be a different component of policies which are particularly important for vulnerable groups. And these needs to be highlighted, and then one can come into a dialogue, discussion with states, what needs to be checked and moved. So it's a very good tool to check if states are really doing what they're supposed to do. And they should not say we don't have the money, it's all too expensive. They should show that they're using the maximum of their available resources. That is maybe the legal frame which enable us to talk differently when we talk about the right to food, about these elements, because then it becomes controllable. You can hold the relevant actors accountability. Yeah. And not to forget regulation of private actors. So that's one of the state obligations, that they are free in what they do, but they have to follow due diligently the rules of the right to adequate food. Maybe I stop here, and sorry that my presentation doesn't fit the screen fully, but you can download or you can get the presentation later. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Michael. And indeed, we will share all the presentations with the participants, so you will have the time to take a look at it. And as the meeting is recorded, you will as well have the chance to re-listen to it while having a better view of the presentation. Juan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ali. I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen, my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you. I mean, first of all, thank you to you, Lily, to Walter, to Michael, and for everyone joining us, because let me start by saying that what you are promoting, the campaign, the mobilization that you are undertaking, colleagues, it's really something extraordinarily important for the European people and beyond, as we shall see during this couple of hours. So now that Michael has presented what right to food is, I will try to describe in a bit more than 5 minutes why Europe needs a strong right to food framework. And my first message I want to share is that the state of the right to food in the European Union presents a sort of a paradox, right? Because on the one hand, in terms of availability, the EU does not face a structural problem. The prevalence of undernourishment, according to our own data, FAO data, is below 2.5%. confirming that food supply and production overall is sufficient. But however, of course, the challenge in Europe clearly is that when we look into access and affordability, so our estimation is that more than 11% of the population in the EU experienced moderate or severe food insecurity in 2022, when we analyzed this for the last time, meaning that access to food is not guaranteed for quite a substantial share of the people, right? More than 10%. And this is not because food is unavailable, it's because economic and social barriers are there, right? And at the same time, and this is very worrisome, more than 7% of newborns were born with low birth weight in 2023 in the European Union. This is data from UNICEF and the WHO. And this is again a sign of broader nutritional and social inequalities affecting food access and maternal health in Europe. Or better to say in the European Union. I'm referring to the 27 members.
Vorrei per favore un orzo.
Sorry, there is someone speaking. So this access constraints directly affect nutritional adequacy, right? Another data point, and I don't want to overwhelm you with numbers, but I think it is important. More than 8% of the population was unable to afford a meal containing meat, fish, or a vegetarian equivalent every second day. And this is data from the European Union itself. And this really shows, that cost remains a major barrier to adequate and nutritious diets in Europe. Finally, I mean, in terms of food supply, it remains stable in Europe, but the stability of access, it's kind of increasingly fragile, especially for low income and vulnerable groups in Europe. And this is again because of inflation, because of economic shocks that are, often undermining households' ability to maintain consistent access to adequate food. So in short, you saw that I went one by one through the different components of the right to food as described by Michael. And what we see is that in the EU, the right to food challenge is not a viability indeed, but it's more ensuring equitable, affordable, nutritious, and stable access. And here is the bad news. The bad news is that there is a significant legal gap in Europe when it comes to the right to food. Because on the one hand, all European member states have ratified the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights that Michael was referring to. So this creates a clear binding human rights obligation. So they have to respect, protect, fulfill the right to food, right? As Michael described. But, in theory, this should be reflected in strong national laws and clear accountability mechanisms. But this is not quite the case. And this is because no European constitution explicitly protects the right to food. And, most countries even lack comprehensive legal frameworks that could allow individuals to claim the right or seek remedies when the right is violated. And when protection exists, it's often indirect, it's fragmented, or it's limited to, things like emergency or social assistance. And also that's on country by country basis. But at the regional level, the gap becomes even more evident because the right to food is not explicitly protected in the European Convention of Human Rights. And as a result, of course, the protection remains, again, indirect rather than explicit. And if we talk about the EU level, the focus of the EU policies traditionally on agriculture, on food production, on food safety, on markets. And these policies are, of course, important, but they are designed primarily around economic efficiency targets and around consumers' protection targets, and not necessarily around food as a human right. So, the right to food is not really explicitly recognized in EU primary laws. And Almudena, in a later presentation, I believe, will say a few more things about this. So at the same time, we must recognize that not everything is totally doomed. So there are some concrete advancements that we also have to recognize. And these are just examples. There are plenty more. For instance, in Italy, Lombardy region in the north adopted the first explicit right to food law in the European Union. This was back in 2015, I think. It was a regional law, but it still is important. In Germany, the constitution guarantees not a right to food, but a minimum subsistence level derived from human dignity. And this has been interpreted to include access to food. And also Germany has been very consistently integrating the right to food into the development cooperation. Remember what Michael was saying in terms of external obligations, right? Spain, my own country, offers another good example, right, to some extent, because, there is recent legislation that has been enacted in terms of waste and circular economy, of school feeding. Also, the right to food is fully integrated into the development policies of the country. There is a right to food observatory in place for the monitoring. Michael was referring to monitoring. And we could also mention many other concrete examples from different countries in the European Union, and policies in these countries to strengthen social protection, school meal programs, etc., etc. And also, and this is very, very important, a major milestone was reached in October 24, when the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, so I'm not here talking about the European Union, but the Council of Europe, which is a larger body. It includes also, other countries which are not part of the European Union, but are in the continent. So the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted a resolution on the right to food. The resolution was adopted unanimously by all the groups, and it recommends that member states, and of course every European Union is also a member of the Council of Europe, recommends every member state to integrate the right to food into their national constitution. So it's the first time ever there is a call by a European body asking for this. And it's also calling for the development of a European normative framework to guarantee the right for all. So taking together these developments shows both the scale of the gap, but also, I would say, the direction of our travel, in the sense that, there is a strong international commitments, there is emerging national practices, and there is also, of course, a clear need for a coherent European legal framework on the right to food, which now it's, as I mentioned, lacking. Maybe it's also important to keep in mind that even if the right to food is not explicitly recognized as an autonomous right in the European legal framework, the European courts have sometimes addressed and even enforced the right to food through binding jurisprudence, particularly through the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. And there are some analysis that we did recently with the University of Antwerp under the guidance of Tommaso Ferrando, which is also FIAN president for Belgium. So probably Tommaso is with us today. We did an analysis of the European Court of Human Rights, examined food-related rulings. And what we saw is that food-related deprivations are mainly tackled under Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which is about inhuman and degraded treatment. So this is the indirect way so far mainly used by the European Court of Human Rights to try to protect the right to food. I don't want to go into all the details, but just let me highlight some rulings to make this more concrete. There is this one in Moldova, Stepelua versus Moldova. It's not a European member, but still, the case concerned a detainee which was held for months with insufficient food. And what the court said was that this lack of adequate food contributed to degraded treatment. So right to food was covered that way. Another case in Ukraine, where the applicant, was a detained breastfeeding mother and the newborn child of this mother, and they were receiving again inappropriate food. And again, the court basically ruled based on a violation because of degrading treatment. Another case, this time of a EU country, Bulgaria, and it was a case concerning a man that was confined for years in a social care institution where food was insufficient and of poor quality, so food was not adequate. And the European Court ruled that the overall living conditions includes inadequate food, and that's degrading treatment. So there is this jurisprudence, and it's extremely important because when we talk about human rights, we have to talk about accountability, we have to talk about justiciability. Without judicial scrutiny and enforceable remedies, at the end, rights are just promises or goodwill, right? So this is my last slide. So why Europe needs a strong right to food framework, right? So as Michael described before in some detail, there is this general comment number 12. There is a voluntary guidelines on the right to food, clearly defining what the right to food entails. And it's not only freedom for hunger, again, it's regular, permanent, and dignified access to adequate food through availability, through accessibility, adequacy, stability, and guided by, human rights principles like accountability, participation, non-discrimination. So the advantage of implementing the right to food framework in Europe is precisely that it can move food policy from fragmented responses to a coherent preventive action. Because a right to food approach helps states identifying risks early, protecting, the vulnerable groups before a crisis escalates. Let's say, for instance, inflation. It can also address the structural drivers of this food insecurity, like affordability, inequality, And this is super important in contexts like in Europe. And I must say that this is actually the situation in other parts of the world, like in Latin America, where many countries have fully integrated the right to food into their legal system. So legally recognizing the right to food also brings clarity, coherence, and it can also help aligning agricultural policies with social policies, with health policies, with, you name them, environmental policies, trade policies, and there are sort of single human right objective, which is actually what the voluntary guidelines on the right to food recommends, because this reduces policy contradictions and again, strengthens governance across the complexity of the agri-food system. But most importantly, a rights-based framework strengthens accountability without relying on litigation alone. So you don't need just to have some brave group of people filling a case in Strasbourg. And this could definitely improve transparency, trust, and effectiveness. So in short, what we believe is that recognizing the right to food is not another burden for Europe or for the European Union. It is a tool, or should be a tool, for better policy, for better prevention, and also for better outcomes. And at the end of the day, for more democracy, more participation, more equity, and more equality. I'm sharing here with you some resources that we have, like e-learnings on the right to food, etc. They are really very friendly, and I think it could be very useful if members of the coalition take a look to them. The one is 1 hour and a half, the other is 2 hours, and describes in some detail what Michael was presenting before. What is the right to food? And this is all from my end.
Thank you very much, Juan. It was very interesting, and indeed, we will be sharing all the presentations of our speakers. But without further ado, I would like to ask Almudena Sast from FIAN to speak about the right to food in the European context.
Many thanks, Lily, and many thanks, Juan and Michael. I think you have provided a quite comprehensive perspective on the legal basis, on the right to food. And indeed, I can just complement what Juan just shared, which is like there is a huge legal gap in between the commitments at international level that member states have taken and the translation of those obligations at international level into domestic law. As Michael said, that all member states have ratified Article 11 of the International Covenant on Social and Economic and Cultural Rights. However, those are not really embedded into enforceable laws in internal politics. So we see this like what is the main issue, right? And why bringing the right to food at the EU level will help in closing that gap. Indeed, what is happening nowadays is like the legal principles that are related to agri-food policies in the European Union prioritize like food safety and also the free movement of foodstuff. So basically, it is like a perception which is market-driven and technocratic, which do not consider like the right of people to access to food. So basically, in Europe at the moment, food is considered as a commodity and therefore overlooks the structural inequalities for food access and affordability. So it's been already mentioned, but I would like to emphasize it again, like what the right to food framework could bring to the European legislation on food-related policies. First of all, because the right to food, again, as it was already highlighted, it addresses the political questions around production, distribution, and consumption. Therefore, it gives this systemic approach which will resolve the many incoherences that we see on agri-food policies at the moment. I will provide this coherent perspective. At the same time, given that member states have already committed to international obligation, the right to food implementation would simply set obligation and formalize these type of commitments. At the same time, it would provide legal action and direction by providing guidance on what are the legal and political tools available and that could be mobilized for transforming food systems. Also, it has been mentioned that it's very linked on social justice perspective by focusing on those most affected, most vulnerable by food insecurity. Therefore, again, it underlines the structural causes of inequality when accessing food. Also, and very, very important, human rights are interdependent and indivisible, and that means that it mobilizes the foundation of other human rights. So again, it allows to move away from this fragmented approach to food policies. And finally, because human rights is integrated in policy, then we should talk also about governance and establish appropriate forms for democratic and participatory governance, meaning that participation is ensured and power imbalances are addressed in order to foster democratic decision making. Many times when I speak with EU decision makers, they want like one single policy to be mobilized to implement the right to food. But here I think it's very important that we understand the multifunctionality of the right to food, because it requires that food and agriculture policy are oriented in a way that ensures, first of all, availability, second, accessibility, third, adequacy, and fourth, sustainability. What means availability? Availability means that people have access to sufficient sources of food now and in the future. So basically, this part is very much linked also on the production side. On the accessibility dimension, for instance, like the definition says that food should be physically and economically accessible to people. So it mobilizes, again, like natural factors to be close to people, food environments concept, but also the part on affordability in terms of financial accessibility, also linked to social policies. On the adequacy dimension, it refers to the quality and properties of food. So this is very much linked, for instance, to the nutrition dimension or to health dimension. At the same time, to embraces diversity, because it recognizes also the cultural dimension associated to food in order to be adequate. And finally, the sustainability dimension. It means that the access to food should be done now and in the future while granting the respect to the environment, the recognition on human rights for current generation and for future generation. So in that sense, it gives like a very holistic and comprehensive perspective of all the policies that needs to be mobilized. I also wanted to speak a bit about what European policies could integrate the right to food approach. I will not go too much in detail because this is precisely what is behind the 16 demands of this European Citizenship Initiative. They refer to different legislations that need to be modified or even new legislation that needs to be elaborated. But let me just mention a few of them. For instance, the European vision of food and agriculture recognizes food affordability as a crucial issue to address. Indeed, there is a current survey launched by the European Commission that I encourage all of you to respond. However, it maintains again this market-driven approach and frames basically food affordability in terms of consumers' economic capacity and not as a right. Then it has some positive elements like recognizing territorial food system, fair prices for farmers, and dialogue with food systems actors. But again, as Juan also mentioned, it lacks clear or concrete overarching food framework guiding the direction of change and allowing clear implementation strategies. Another policy would be, for instance, the Common Agriculture Policy, which lacks an orientation for the realization of the right to food. We could share some proposals on how to shift this proposal of the CAP post-2027 in order that could be better aligned for the recognition of the right to food. Finally, like competition law and trade policies requires us to also to be addressed, because at the moment, in the way that EU are conceiving those, favor large corporation and allows market concentration and power imbalances along the food chains with disadvantages small-scale farmers and agroecological practices. So basically, what we are here today is because we are calling for EU legislative action to be informed and improved by the normative content of the right to food. With it, we could address policies with a multi-level and multi-sectoral strategy that overcomes silos and fragmentations. At the moment, social innovation is basically happening at the local level. However, EU food policies are not well oriented to endorse those initiatives. So we believe that with this European Citizenship Initiative, we can open the space of dialogue to assess how the EU policy framework can be used to transform food systems from the bottom up. We think that this initiative, this European Citizenship Initiative, can be a legal instrument and mobilizing tool that creates the transnational space where local specific food-related demands related to fair incomes, land, access to healthy food, climate, etc., are connected at EU level for political change and reinforcing each other's. Therefore, this effort for collecting 1 million signature process should be oriented in a way that build alliances, increase political awareness, and calls for collective political action for change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Almudena. Excellent. And just to keep the ball rolling, I would like to ask Ramona Dominiciu from Ecoruralis to speak about the power of the coalition and why we need all of you.
Thank you so much, Lily. Thanks to all the other speakers who explained so nicely what this ECI is all about. I hope I bring also my contribution with some further clarifications. First of all, what gives the ECI the real power, it's not necessarily the legal mechanism itself that the EU has organized for its citizens, but it's the actual coalition that we're building behind it. And today we're more than 233 organizations who signed the Memorandum of Understanding. And each organization has a very diverse field of work. We have farmers, anti-poverty groups, animal welfare advocates, environmental NGOs, youth movements, public health networks, consumers organizations, migrant right movements, and many others. This giant collective represents what we call an European civil society ecosystem for the right to food. In every EU country, we have ecosystems that are adapted to the national context. We have civil society cultures that differ from country to country. We have different political pressures. We have different movements and alliances that are working. And the mobilization that we're building around the right to food needs to grow from these realities. Some countries will be driven by farmers. In other countries, we will have social justice groups that will lead the campaign for the right to food. In others, there will be food policy councils or youth activists, animal advocacy groups. It will all depend on the national dynamics. And our job together is to advocate the ecosystem that already exists, to connect the movements between each other, and sometimes movements and groups that have not always worked together, and to remind together that we are going all in the same direction. We are working in a decentralized campaign, which means that decisions and initiative rise from the ground up. It means that basically each country will shape its own strategy, its narratives, events, while we all stay together connected in a European campaign. We are aligned basically, but we are very diverse, and this is what we believe that will make our coalition resilient, but most of all democratic. And I will tell you now a bit about the role of the national focal points, which are extremely important. To make this decentralization work, we will rely on national focal points. And these national focal points are organizations or informal groups who voluntarily coordinate actors within their own countries at national level. Their role will be to connect, to translate, to support, and to amplify this European campaign at a national level. I have several points that I want to highlight. First, it's the communication across borders and with the steering committee that these national focal points will do. They will build the bridge between local reality and the European structure of this campaign. And there are several ways we will do it: to maintain regular communication with the steering committee and with the national focal points in other countries, sharing challenges, sharing opportunities, getting inspired from each other, participating in different exchanges that we will organize throughout the next year to ensure that we are aligned with our messages, with our timelines, with different priorities that we will identify. These national focal points will relay national needs, the questions that come from national level, and also different strategic insights that can inspire each other's campaigns. Yeah, there's all that. I want to add a different point, supporting national alliances and how to build that. There are several ideas I want to relay to you. Identify relevant organizations, identify movements, networks at national level who could and should be part of the campaign, help organize meetings, working groups, assemblies, facilitate collaboration between actors who may not have worked together before, like farmers, anti-poverty groups, health organizations, environmental organizations, parents groups, chefs, consumer groups, and so much more. I mean, food is concerning everyone, and we are, as a society, very diversely organized. And ensure that all organizations, large or small, are informed, they're empowered, and connected in this national campaign. Another very important point that I want to share with you is the fundraising, because we will do a lot of work, and this will be a need that will be encountered by everyone. To support the mobilization at country level, we will need resources, we will need the materials, travel support, event costs, translation, digital tools, and so much more. And focal points can and should also facilitate small fundraising efforts at national level, either alone or with partners, identify opportunities for grants, donations, and in-kind supports, help organize shared budgets with different organizations that could take on different costs of the campaign, communicate national resources needs to the European Steering Committee, and see together how to raise funds. The thing is, please don't be scared. Fundraising is not a requirement, but it's a function that supports and allows national alliances to scale up their impact and build up their autonomy. Many people think supporting an ECI means organizing big events or having large budgets, but in reality, our strength will come from varied contributions, and organizations can help by hosting signature points, small activities or community meetings, share campaign messages on social media, translating materials, engaging journalists or local authorities, mobilizing farmers, parents, students, or workers, or simply ensuring that all the members of their network signs our European petition. And we're finally, my last message is that we're hoping that on 7th of January, the world will not see a campaign that is launched from Brussels, but a campaign that is launched from hundreds of organizations across Europe that are acting together with the purpose to achieve the right to food for all. Thank you. Thank
you very much, Ramona. And our next speaker will be Olga Kiku, who will be introducing the ECI, the Good Food for All. So she gives you a better overview of it.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm just trying to make sure that I share the Okay.
You did it perfectly before, so I'm sure you will do it now as well.
Okay. All right.
I'll let you know. I'm here with you.
Okay. Do you see it now?
We still see. Yes, just remember to click on the display settings.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I'm trying to find the display.
It's the
Yeah,
second.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I think you should see it now.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Olga Kiku. I'm with the organization, the NGO, Animal Advocacy and Food Transition. I'm also the a representative of the ACI, and I'm with Walter. I'm a co-founder of the Good Food for All NGO in Brussels, and I have worked a lot on a previous ECI and the cage age one. Let's see what an ECI is. What is a European Citizens Initiative? One thing we need to remember, let's not call it a petition. It's not a petition. It's so much more than a petition. It is a tool basically that enables citizens to get involved in EU policymaking. And the ECI calls, any ECI calls on the European Commission to propose legislation. It is covered under the latest regulation from 2019. And we can see that ECIs in general, they have different purposes. Of course, the main purpose is to secure a change in the law at EU level. However, there are other functions for ECIs. For example, ECIs are a great tool to raise awareness and mobilize the public for a particular cause. It was introduced in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union from 2009, the so-called Lisbon Treaty. It was officially launched in 2012 and revised again. An ECI basically, you need to form an organizing committee of 7 citizens from different European countries, and they need to be old enough to vote in EU elections. And this citizens committee mobilizes people to sign the statements of support. And we need at least 1 million verified signatures in order to have a successful ECI. And by that, we mean an ECI that will be considered by the European Commission. So far, there have been 11 answered initiatives, so you can understand, and 124 that have been registered by the Commission. So you can see that it is quite difficult to be able to go over the 1 million mark. More information you can find in the website here, in the Commission's website. There are certain criteria that need to be fulfilled in order for a statement of support to be valid. It must be signed by EU citizens. They need to be old enough to vote, and there are certain requirements now in regards to the minimum age. Most countries accept 18 as minimum age, but some countries have gone a bit lower at 17 or 16. And there are certain ID demands regarding the verification of the citizenship. For example, in the fact that someone as a person exists, actually someone who signs the ECI. There are 2 categories. One is it has the ID, and that's big category. It has the ID requirement, which makes it a little bit more difficult. And the 8 category has other requirements such as residence. And let's look at the process now. Basically, there is 1 year within which we are required to collect signatures, the so-called statements of support. And following that, we will have to group them by nationality and send to the competent authorities in the member states in order for them to verify the signatures. This has to be done within 3 months of from the end of the signature collection phase. So let's say in our case, we start in early 26, then early 27, early January, we end the signature collection phase. Then we have 3 months basically to gather all of the signatures and send them for verification. Then the member states have their certain authorities, competent authorities in the member states. They have another 3 months to validate the signatures, and they issue certificates. And following that, we also have 3 months to actually submit the initiative with all the certificates and submit all of the information, including information on funding, to the European Commission. Now, this table, I know the letters are quite, and the numbers are quite small, but you can get an idea of how many signatures are needed, what is the minimum threshold per country. So in order for, we need to have at least 7 countries where the ECI will go over the minimum threshold. And you can see here what is the minimum threshold. However, if you only go over the minimum, if you only have the minimum threshold, you can see that, and you have that in all countries, you can still, you're in the 500,000 mark, you still need more signatures. So we estimate that if we are to achieve the minimum, more than the minimum threshold in all countries, we need to basically have about, to be in the safe zone, we need to actually collect 1.2 million signatures based on experience from other ECIs. So it is quite important that we remember this. Following of course, the submission of signatures, within 1 month, the European Commission meets with the ECI representatives, and following the meeting with the Commission, then there is usually a public hearing in the European Parliament, and it's in some occasions the European Parliament has proceeded with also to have a debate at plenary level and to adopt a resolution. There is, and then within 6 months from the time when you submit the signatures to the European Commission, the European Commission will issue a communication which can be positive or negative in a way, which will explain the reasons for taking a certain action or not taking a certain action, and will also meet with the ECI representatives to provide more details. One important here, you can of course find more information. There is a forum, a citizens initiative forum that you can actually look at the website and engage more if you want to have specific advice on an ECI or even exchange with others. One important point to make is that a legislative proposal is not guaranteed. So even if you have a positive response from the Commission, still the Commission may decide not to go down the legislative route, but to seek other measures. And a few words on the ECI, on the right to food ECI, or as we call it now, the Good Food for All ECI, which is the more common name for this ECI, so people can understand it better. The title is Food is a Human Right for All, Guaranteeing Healthy, Just, and Sustainable Food Systems. So basically what the ECI is trying to achieve, as was also mentioned earlier, this ECI is multifaceted. It covers many different sectors, and you can see here some of the sectors that are covered. The ECI basically addresses issues regarding democratic governance, social protection, as Almudena said earlier, that recognizing that agricultural products are not ordinary commodities. We ask for support to peasant agroecology, combating agricultural lands concentration, support for peasant seed systems, regulation of GMOs, strengthening animal welfare, sustainable water management, support to healthier and more plant-based diets, support sustainable food procurement, food labeling, stopping food waste, and strengthening of the right to food in third countries. You can find a lot more information on the website that is listed here, goodfoodforall.eu. And finally, we are starting the collection of signatures on the 7th of January. This is 6 months from the date of registration by the Commission, which was the 8th of July. And of course, we expect a number of outcomes, and I will just go through these very quickly. An ECI is basically, it sets the agenda at EU level, and we are actually going through a very difficult political time, but it is important that we set the agenda, that the ECI, that we make the point about the ECI and have all these demands actually become more known in the public. It lays the groundwork for future work on this particular issue. There is, of course, we also strengthen the idea of democratic participation, because it is important for citizens to be involved in policy making. We are mobilizing citizens across Europe on the right to food, and people learn more about the issue. We, as Ramona said earlier, we are also building cross-sector and cross-country alliances. We are, of course, talking to the institutions and getting involved in more debates at institutional level. And finally, of course, we are reclaiming food policy, shifting food policy from a market-based approach to seeing food policy as a public good. And my last message is we are trying to change the world, so let's go for it.
Thank you. Excellent, Olga. Then I would like to ask Hélène Kio from Action contre la faim to speak about the campaign voluntary guidelines. Hélène, the floor is yours.
Is it okay? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, but it's not yet in presentation mode.
Okay.
Now it's good.
So yeah, the point is to speak about the voluntary guidelines. You all received a link with the voluntary guidelines with the invite of the webinar. These voluntary guidelines are voluntary, first of all, but we designed them since quite a long time, since the beginning in Geneva. We had a time to work on them with the steering committee. The goal of these voluntary guidelines is to provide for all of us a shared foundation to work together effectively, while leaving plenty of space for creativity and national realities. We need something to be clear on and to have coherence between all of us, but we are also completely aware of the need for flexibility, because each country is different, your capacities are different, the context are different, the political landscape is different. So we intend to help speak the same political language while respecting diversity amongst all of us, the specificities. And these guidelines, basically, they explain one thing first, the logic of sharing of responsibility. So at EU level, the campaign and the steering committee is responsible for the legal framework for the ECI. So Olga just explained. We are also responsible for a proposed common narrative, the visual identity of the global campaign that you will see just afterwards. We set up and will manage the digital infrastructure for signature collection. I'll come back on this later on. And the idea is also for the EU level to coordinate and facilitate and monitor the implementation of the campaign. At national level, you all and national focal points, and I'm just asking one thing. The national focal points in the room, if they want to introduce themselves in the Q&A section, that might be good on if they want to like present them, the ones that want, or at least to introduce themselves to the other actors. If they have updates on, I don't know, events upcoming, they can do it, I think, in the Q&A section. But for the national level, organizations and national focal points, they are responsible for mobilization, outreach, and also to adapt messages to their own context, communication tools, and mobilization methods. Because what works in one country might not work in one other country, and local realities are different. So we are fully aware of this. At national level, the idea is also, as Ramona said, to organize events, to activate existing network, and to create new networks if you can. That's basically the way we present it in the guidelines, and we hope it's clear for you, the sharing of responsibility. One very concrete example of what's in the guideline is that we set some guidance and principle. One example, the signature. As Walter said, and maybe he will explain more in detail than me, signature collection is 100% digital. We won't collect signatures on paper because it's more efficient to do it digitally speaking, and we will use the official ECI system and create for all of you. It's already created, so we made it simple for all of you. Create QR codes that will go to the signature collection platform. And Walter, I see that you want to complement me.
Yeah, because I can, in fact, take the chance just to show you a thing very quickly. I share my screen. I'll take a minute only. So I think you're seeing this Good Food for All screen. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. So I created this very simple coding. This will answer also a question asked by Jan or Jan from Germany. So we don't collect any paper signature, but is everything digital? So I provided a list of links in the toolkit that you can use for your website, newsletter, social media. But then I created this thing. So this thing is, you are in an event or you are in your office, you go on this link and you have a panel where you can present to a person or a citizen that wants to sign. So what they do, first of all, you can choose your language. So if you put it in Italian, it's not becoming Italian, but usually it will. Then you click on the country of the citizen that want to sign directly on your device. Let's say Italy. You click this button and it will bring the citizen to the page already set up for the Italian documents. Then, if you are in an event, so you are a volunteer, you click on this, I am a volunteer. Then there is someone that is coming toward you, you speak for 20 seconds about the ECI, and you ask them which country they're from. So if you click on Austria, for example, the QR code will update automatically, and the person can just scan the QR code, and they will be able to sign on their phone or their whatever they have in their hand. And this works on any country in the list. I double check with the EU Commission IT, and everything is working pretty well. So at midnight, the 7th of January, I will double check just in case. But this will fix a lot of problem for you. Again, there is also a guide for the links themselves. I think it's pretty easy, but if someone has any problem at any given time, you just get in touch with me directly. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Walter. And just to continue, how to use and feed the guidelines. The idea is one key word, co-creation. The guidelines are a common reference point for coalition action. You will see, and I don't know if you all had the capacity to read it before, but you can read it and come back with questions, of course. But the idea is that it's also indications and suggestions that we make. Some of them, like the signature collection, 100% digital, are firm and are set in the stone. Others are just suggestions for giving coherence between all of us and our actions. One thing that I would like to insist, and I said it, but again, the idea is also for the focal points on you guys, you all organization members at national level, to have flexibility to adapt the message, the tools, the activities, the mobilization methods, of course, to your own context. But what we set in the guidelines is a campaign rhythm. The idea is to have a launch and a big launch in January. So on the 7th, the idea is for all of us, as much as possible, to give visibility and to use the visibility that will be presented just afterwards. And from February onwards, the idea is to consolidate, to look for new audience, and to consolidate the way we mobilize in each country, adapting to each country. And the final month, it's also lessons learned from other ECI. It's a last push to reach the target. One last thing on the guideline, as I said, it's a living document, which means it will evolve with your feedbacks. We do not think it's set in the stone. We like to receive your feedbacks, and it's designed for long-term consistency. So if there are questions, just ask them, and we'll try to give as much as clarity on the questions that might come from reading the guidelines. But the idea is to move fast, stay coherent, and to adapt to all context and audience. And that's why we need such a document, and that's why we need such a document being a reference for all of us and a living document to be able to adapt and amplify the campaign while we are going on in 2026. And I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hélène. So our next speaker will be Beatrice Di Resta of KeerWeb.
Here I am.
Present you, excellent, the campaign materials and the visual
Yes.
identity of our campaign.
So do you see everything?
Yes.
Okay, so today I will introduce you our campaign. Okay, so as we already said, food quality is a key focus that we want to highlight in this whole social media campaign, encouraging users to generating excitement around the topic that concerns all European citizens. So what's our communication objects? We want to raise awareness among citizens and empower them that this is an issue that affects everyone, so access to quality of food. But at the same time, we want to obtain a sufficient number of signatures to support all European bills. So we want to promote, as I've said till now, our target audience, men and women from 18 and over, and residents of the EU countries. The tone of voice that we've selected. To achieve our communication object, we have to select different aspects of our tone of voice. It's going to be serious, but at the same time, irreverent and empathetic. Of course, pragmatic, but not formal and informal. So we are trying to have a mid-time view, but it has to be absolutely disruptive. So this is our main point. What's the issue? So in this landscape, we want to raise funds for humanitarian action. We want to do is say to be perceived as something different. So we are not asking for money, but for support. So it's not a humanitarian gesture, but a civil solidarity that is credible and not pietistic. So this is our point. Then benefit is that everybody should have access to food without economic restriction or compromises on quality. So our creative proposal. The creative insight is that we want to hack the system. So we have acquired a mindset that thinks in terms of levels. So many things are accessible, free, but just very few can be at a higher level. So when the performance or the quality of service can become illicit and exclusive. So we want to hack the system. How we want to do it? We want premium to mean full access to everybody. So good food for all, hack the food system. So the 2026 campaign will have several social and digital activation, influencer campaign, and publication of static social media content and videos. I will show you some examples in a minute. So This content would be included in a monthly calendar. So each month we will send you a calendar, but I will explain it right now, that will be maintained throughout the year based on the progress of the signature collection. So it's going to change during the whole time. Online activation, how we will do it. The movement will take shape through influencers. So each European country shows it, we will have influencers that are strategically engaged. Their participation will create a buzz that will attract the attention of their own fan bases. So a lot of people from different ages, different interests and nationalities. This is very important, that they are all different influencers with different fan base. This is very, very important. So we should imagine like these influencer storms as a college page. So someone's talking, another one is interrupting their video reels and commercials, bringing to attention as a potential viral activation. So never seen before on social media marketing. Two influencers from two different categories, one is going to interrupt the other one and the opposite. Cool. We're going to do a very long tower scouting process. So we will carry out this, taking out into account the target audience we aim to reach. So we will select talents from diverse world, art, music, cinema, and social media. The campaign will be custom designed for each European country involved, so it's going to be different. We're going to choose influencers based on the media reach, cultural relevance, and engagement within the national context. To amplify the impact and generate a disruptive effect, as I said, each influencer is going to be paired with another one from a different background, so completely different from him, with a contrasting tone of voice. We want to create an unexpected situation and a cross-native narrative contamination. So the goal is to achieve a disruptor, as a tone of voice we just said, and viral outcome, where two influencer worlds intervene, giving life to surprising contexts capable of sparking conversation and engagement. The mechanics. So wearing a sort of mask, like V for Vendetta style, the influencer will enter the colleague's video. So they will be creepy, like in this interface with our video reel, interrupting suddenly. So at the point, everything is suspended because there is a message really important to share, that is good food for all. So we found different provocative hooks, such as, do you believe you are the same as all the European citizens, poor deluded soul? Or what good food have you eaten today? I'll tell you, nothing. So we find different hooks that will be during all these different videos. And you can see some of them right here. And this is going to be the mechanics. But then we have the revealing part. So the influencer will reveal their real identity, so mask off, and explain the reason behind this initiative. So inviting other users to visit the initiative landing page to sign up. So I am part of the movement, take action and sign. The potential. A social media campaign supported by influencer has a great potential. So it allows us to reach millions of people in an authentic and engaging way. So engaging different casts of influencers, the message can be transcend national and cultural boundaries. And we're creating really solidarity around the right to quality of food. So they will stimulate empathy and action and help us obtain the signature. So their personalized and targeted communication is going to promote virality, media impact, and spontaneous coverage. It also allows messages to be tailored to the specific target, increasing trust and relevance, and encouraging fan base to participate to the cause. Social content. So alongside the influencer marketing campaign, we will publish posts and videos to discuss the objectives of the Hack the Food System initiative. Content will be drive to site posts, so with a call to action to sign up. In-depth posts, so the importance of having a controlled supply chain at a European level. Reminder to sign and share simply, and editorial content to communicate how many have already signed. This format will be as individual posts, carousel, and video to explain each point of the manifesto. This is an example of the drive to site post. So if you want them to stop poisoning our food, sign here. The post is going to be provocative, of course. Another example, if you want farmers and food workers to stop starving, sign here. Or an editorial content. So we need a lot more sign now, already have signed, so all this type of posts. And a reminder to sign. So if you believe in the right to have quality food accessible to all, sign now and share. So this post will help us encourage the target audience to sign and share the content. So in this way, we have the potential to have infinite social repercussions. Website. So the new website is going to be focuses on highlighting action points as much as possible. So in order to make it easier for users to find in every content the access point for signing. So it's very important to have this access point. With this as the main object, we designed the user experience to ensure easy and intuitive navigation, making signing or renting CTAs the core of the navigation. We did the same thing for the mobile version, so they have the same concept, but in this case, we added a fixed action point, for example, the slide out menu, that are highlighted to ensure the option to sign is always accessible. Toolkit, that is the most important part for the committee. So at the end of each month, an editorial plan that is translated into English, French, and Italian is going to be sent for the social media channels of Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. This plan will include the information, publishing calendar with dates, caption for each post, so a customized text accompanied for coalition members in English, French, and Italian that can be copied and translated, and links to graphics in English, French, and Italian that can be downloaded or translated directly on the Canva. I will show you in a minute how. While the content publishing, in the Instagram page, the post is going to be published on the page, and a final call to action is going to be included in the caption, inviting user to click the link in bio, such as sign to support our initiative, click the link in our bio, and make a difference. In this case, it's very, very important that you include the link in the bio, so rename Good Food for All, and we are going to use the European Union link. While in the Facebook page, the post can be published on the page, and the caption may include a call to action, of course, inviting user to sign, but we can add the sign to now to support directly in the caption. So here you have a Canva template, the example. We will share with you all the posts in different languages, and at the end, as you can see in this video, you can just edit. So if there are other languages that are not English, French, or Italian, you can just traduce it. So each month, the coalition members will receive a link to the graphic that they can publish on their social media channels. And we will include downloadable post. The Canva file can be edited and customized, allowing members to insert the copy translated in their desired language. Finally, we arrive to the hashtag. As we know, hashtags are no longer functioning effectively as a visibility tool, because today's social media algorithm prioritize interest and interaction, so not the word preceded by the hashtag symbol. But we still hold value for recognition. So we are going to use just a simple campaign hashtag that will help us to create consistency, making content easily identifiable, and that will aid people to remember the initiative as long as, even if it doesn't directly impact the reach. So the hashtag will therefore be included and is going to be Good Food for All. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Beatrice. I would just like to remind you that we have a question and answer button on the lower panel, and we will have very short time to answer in person or live the questions. I would encourage everyone who have questions, and as well the national focal points, to introduce themselves there, so we can continuously, simultaneously already answer all the questions that arise.
Can I just add a thing? Sorry, we will share obviously the toolkit with everyone, so this is going to be accessible to everybody. Sorry, I just forgot this part. Sorry.
Go ahead, Walter. You want to say something? Or you want to, it was just peace out. Okay, fantastic. Then our next speaker is Flavia Fatuzzo from Urgency, who will talk about the tools and the practical mobilization.
Thank you, Lily, and everyone. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Flavia, and I work for Urgency. Urgency is the international network of local solidarity partnership for agroecology, and some of you may know community-supported agriculture, CSA, as one of the most common iteration of this model. It's a model of trust between producers and consumers. When we talk about the right to food, we're not just talking about policies or legal frameworks, we're talking about what ends up on our plates, how it is produced, and who can actually afford it. Also for young people especially, this ECI is not just an abstract concept, it's about fighting uncertainty, precarity, and the feeling that decisions are being made without us. So today I want to focus on how we can mobilize practically, so in practical ways. And step number one is mobilizing communities, especially ones that already exist. The key here is to include the ECI into conversations that are already happening. So speaking again of youth, peer-to-peer mobilization is quite effective, but we can try to ally with and mobilize any existing networks and coalitions that are working on similar topics and try to use already existing communication channels like WhatsApp groups, Discord, Telegram channels, mailing lists, you mentioned it, anything works. And the second step is, of course, gathering the signatures, especially without paper forms. One of the biggest strengths of an ECI today is that everything can happen digitally. And to gather signatures without paper, it's always important to have the official ECI link always available. If you're using a communication channel like the WhatsApp group, you can try, if you can, to pin the signature link in the group so that people that enter the group can see it immediately without scrolling. The trick here is to avoid people being lazy, so try to make things as easy as possible, and never ever talk about the ECI without offering an immediate way to sign it. If people have to search later, they won't. If they can sign in 30 seconds on their phone, they will. Juan, your hand is raised. You're muted.
Sorry, I was just saying that maybe I could just put it in the chat, so not to take more time. But it's about the terminology of the campaign as food quality versus adequate food. But I will just put something on the chat on this. Thank you.
Yes, please do so. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So going back on practical ways to mobilize, we mentioned QR codes. QR codes are also very, very important and effective because they work in offline events. So if you go to a public event, a festival, a workshop, conference, assembly, and you can literally put them on anything. If you have posters, if you have stickers, table sign, if you are presenting something, putting it at the end of the presentation. It's also very important that the QR code leads directly to the ECI signature page and on the general website, because then people have to look for the signature page. It's important to give them a direct access, again, to avoid people losing interest immediately. Another aspect is local events, since we're talking about offline mobilization. So any event, any scale, small, large, medium, the logic is pretty much the same. We need to create a moment of connection around the right to food, explain the problem simply, and offer a clear action. So in this case, sign the ECI and share it. That's also very, very important. Another aspect, online, not offline this time, is social media. I will not go too much into details because Beatrice explained very well how powerful social media can be. But another thing I wanted to add is that consistency is very important. So we need to have a steady rhythm and try to share as much content as possible to gather attention. And always include the link to sign in anything we're doing. And step number 6 is about volunteers. So this mobilization is about people and their human rights. So it's important to also talk about the people that are helping us in this mission, like volunteers. Volunteers, to make them really inclusive in part of this process, it's important that they have specific tasks, that they have recognition and that we trust them, and that the tasks we give them are clear and simple. So without just saying, help us with the campaign, we can give them a more specific and direct task, like, can you share the ECI in this event that you're participating in? Can you bring this flyer to this other event, to this meeting? Can you create an Instagram story? So anything that can make it accessible and effective and also inclusive. So to conclude, the right food is not just a policy demand. In Europe, young people, but not only, are already mobilizing for climate justice, for social rights, for dignity. And this ECI gives us a concrete democratic tool to turn those values into action and work toward the just and sustainable food systems. In urgency, I speak for my organization, we are a social movement rooted in the concept of solidarity and community in the fight for food sovereignty. And we think that if we all come together, use the networks that we have, the tools in our pockets, our energy, good food for all can really move from a slogan to a reality. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Flavia. So our next speaker will be Saverio Teruzzi, and he will speak about what will happen exactly on the 7th of January with the launching of the ECI.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Saverio Teruzzi from Città dell'Arte Pistoletto Foundation. And but what I want to say is in squares, in parliament, or in the 7 more powerful. Start from a daily gesture, from a simple choice, from a place that belongs to all of us.
Saverio, I think you're breaking.
Start from the fridge, from the place where climate. What?
Sorry, you're a little bit breaking up. Maybe you can take off your camera just so we have a more stable. I think others have the same problem as well. No? Okay, so it's just me. Sorry, continue then.
Okay. Well, the place can, the fridge is work and human dignity meet every single day. A place that tells us better than any statistic whether the right to food is real or only declared. With the European Citizen Initiative, Food is a Human Right for All, we officially open the signature collection with a clear goal: to make the right to food a guaranteed, not negotiable right for everyone in Europe. This is not an ideological battle, it's a concrete one. It concerns families, children, students, workers, farmers, older people, everyone. It concerns those who produce food and those who increasingly struggle to access it in a healthy, sustainable, and dignified way. The first week matters. The first 7 days of signatures collection are crucial, not only for the numbers, but for the cultural and political signal we send. Every signature is a clear statement. Food is not just another commodity, it's a human right. The journey includes the flash mob on January 14 at 12 in Place Luxembourg, Bruxelles. It's not just a symbolic moment, but a collective artistic action. We bring into public space what usually remains hidden or symbolic. We change our lifestyle that is shaped both by European policies and by our daily choices. This is not just a campaign, it's a beginning of
Unfortunately, Saverio, sorry everyone, he has a problem with his internet connection. I remove his video, but it's not getting better. So maybe...
That's what I was trying to say, but you were saying that he...
yeah, but now it just collapsed. Yeah.
What?
So, no, it doesn't work. So I can take the place of Saverio for 2 minutes until figure out. There is a flash mob the 14th of January from 12 to 2 o'clock in Place Luxembourg in Bruxelles, obviously. And we will recreate
yes, from the moment it shows
at Paradise. We will send you some images. You will be able to share it, and then we will put together like a guide on how to do a flash mob. Many of you, for sure, Flavia and all her friends, know already how to do it, but maybe some old like me are not very practical. So we will do like maybe a guide on how to do flash mobbing, and then in the toolkit I will upload a first week signature collection roadmap, which you can use on this regard. I hope you're going to use it because it will give you some coherent like point from the 7th to the 14th. Once again, you will be provided everything to execute. You can execute by using the roadmap if you wish so. If you have more experience than us, please share it with us. If you have some critique, please share it with us so we all get better. But we did it just to have a coherent like movement across 27 countries, which is quite a big space with a lot of languages and a lot of working culture. So I don't know if Saverio is back on track. Otherwise, I'll give it back to Lily.
Let's see, Saverio, can you... No. Okay, sorry, Saverio, but it's not working. I don't know whether you can do it maybe from your phone or another...
I can try, but we can go ahead. Good. We can go ahead.
No, go ahead. Now we can hear you. Let's try.
Trying to tell Walter. Yes. No,
I'd say we go
ahead because they have problem with the connection.
Okay, then
we go on in the question and answer. I mean, there are not many.
Exactly. Thank you all very much for all the questions that you have asked and your comments in the question and answers. We have so far at least 55 of them. As already mentioned, we will gather all these and send you out after this webinar, just so you can reread them, and many of the questions might arise as well later on, so you already have the answers. So as we have 20 more minutes left, I don't know whether there are some questions you want to address directly.
Any one of the speakers that wants to answer some question live, just raise your hand, please.
One? Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe not to exhaust the response to that, but it's something that really, we have to look into it very carefully, is the whole issue of the Council of Europe, right? Because, of course, this campaign is towards the European Union, and it's very important, not only in terms of hopefully succeeding in terms of modifying policies in the European Union, but because it really creates momentum, etc., etc. But we have to keep sight that the House of Human Rights in Europe is the European Court of Human Rights, which is not a new institution and is much more open to human rights for many reasons. So, and also because there is this resolution by the Parliament, by the Assembly of the Council of Europe, actually asking for changes in that regard. So I think that at some point, maybe not in parallel, but afterwards, a subsequent step should be also advocating towards the Council of Europe for now moving forward what the Assembly of the Council of Europe is asking for, which is concrete action, and that could be a protocol to the European Charter on Human Rights, or it could adopt any other form. I just wanted to mention that. And another, it's not responding to a question, but it's more like a comment. And I know that for the needs of communication and campaigning, of course, sometimes we need to use words which are more catchy, and be cognizant of that. But we also have to keep to keep in mind that when we talk about food quality, at least in human rights, we are talking about something different to allocate food. In EU legislation, food quality has a very precise meaning, and it's about the product. Is our product filling certain rules and regulation of the European Union? When we talk about adequate food, we are talking about the people. Is it the food adequate for the person? And there is much more dimensions like cultural, etc. So it's not for us, for the FAO, to tell you guys what should be the slogans of the campaign, but I really want to point that out, that if you use food quality, you are deviating somehow from what the right to food actually exactly means, and you may deviate from the centrality of the person. In different languages, these terms translate differently, so it's not that automatic and that easy, I know. But I just wanted to kind of mention that.
Thank you very much. Olga?
Yeah, I saw that there were some questions in the chat, so I just wanted to reiterate that, of course, we are via the CCI, we are pressing the Commission to propose legislation and amend rules in regards to the right to food and all these sectors that are, let's say, affected and involved, as was mentioned a number of times today. But regardless of the final outcome, I think we also need to pay attention to the movement building effort that the CCI brings together so many people from so many different sectors, and and in a way it spreads the message about the right to food across Europe, hopefully putting politicians and decision makers and policymakers under pressure. So we want to increase pressure on all of these people, despite the political setbacks that we have experienced here in Europe in the last couple of years. Still, we want to maintain this pressure on decision makers, so eventually they will proceed with legislative measures in regards to the right to food and all the sectors that it touches on.
Thank you, Olga. Walter?
I can answer Delphine for the influencer. So for the first 6 months, and this is maybe breaking news, we don't have much budget to pay influencer, obviously, but we just reach our own network. And Kirweb, unfortunately, she has to leave. They will provide on what they think is the best, which is these videos that one influencer starts, and then another friend or whatever it is the case, connection, enter in his video or her video. So I guess you will be able, if you are lucky enough to have a list of influencers, because I don't know anyone, you can discuss with your friends on how to produce this video, and Kirweb and us will provide the guide on how to do it. If you like to share with us the list of influencers, you are more than welcome to do it. We don't demand any of this, because I guess the influencer in Romania don't care about me in Switzerland and, like all this crisscross. But resources are resources, and if you put it on the table for every other colleague you have in your country, it may be useful.
Excellent, thank you. We also have a few more other questions in the...
I can answer for the founding. And then there is either Thomas here, and then there is Olga, if you want. Yeah. I just simplified the document I shared last week. I removed completely the in-kind and the volunteer equivalents in cash, and we just leave this limit of 500 euros. Is not imposed by us. In fact, we are not imposing anything, to be completely honest, but we just follow the law. So those are the rules, and we just put it out like this. But apparently it doesn't need to be that severe of a reporting. And there is Thomas. Maybe Thomas, you feel like adding some words, or maybe Olga would like to
Sure. I mean, when it comes to funding, there are some rather light transparency rules mentioned in the ECI regulation, and it is necessary to publish all donations and similar financial support for the ECI of more than 500 euros. This is a requirement. The basic idea behind this rule is to show to the wider public who actually supports this concrete initiative. But that's all. There are no further requirements in this regard.
Olga?
Just I wanted to say in regards to funding, just to make sure that people understand that when we are talking about ECI related, we are only talking about very specifically ECI related funding. A lot of organizations work on a number of issues, not just on this particular, and will work on a number of issues, not on just on this particular ECI, but also on the wider campaign. And we need to understand that we're not asking organizations to, let's say, record and funding that is in regards to campaigning efforts generally. So just to make sure that we don't overburden people with too much reporting. And so if you have any questions, feel free to ask, of course, down the line whenever you come up with specific issues.
Exactly. I just want to confirm, Olga, it's only about financial support specifically dedicated to this particular ECI, not financial support for campaigning in general for topics which may be also related to the ECI.
Should we give it to Paolo to close? What do you say, Lily?
First, let's ask whether any of our panelists have, before the closing, because we still have a little bit of time, if anyone wants to make, or they forgot to say something during their presentation and they absolutely want to highlight it. But as I see no hands raised, then, oh, there is, okay.
Maybe something very quick, and I'm not saying this as FA, of course, but as Juan, which is that, and we saw that when the initiative in the Council of Europe was promoted in the Assembly and it was approved, which is that the support or the opposition to the right to food by different European parties is not always, exactly what we might think. Also because they see different interpretations of this. For instance, some populist political parties are now using even the terminology of food sovereignty with a very different understanding of what we may be aware of. So I just want to mention to that. And the other one is that sometimes parties which are more liberal or very liberal might be very much opposing because of the support to large corporations, etc. On the other hand, parties which are like more Christian Democrat and conservatives tend to be quite supportive. They really do not normally oppose the right to food, right? Because different reasons. It's connected also to traditions of Christianity and things like that. So what my whole point here is that the spectrum of parties that could support this in the European Parliament could go well beyond the usual suspects, right? So the more the initiative is presented in these, I would say, non-partisan terms, of course, the better. And of course, big congratulations, because what you guys are doing, it's really super important for Europe.
Thank you very much, Juan. Michael?
Yeah, also already congratulations to what you are doing. And I think it's a very timely initiative. Maybe it would be worthwhile, following what Juan just said, to have something like a frequently asked questions document where one could answer to some of the to be expected, let's say, misunderstandings of a right to food. Is it too bureaucratic? Is it too costly? Is it so answering some of these potential, let's say, easy challenges which might be coming, yeah, and having such a document which can be further developed in the course of the next month could be extremely helpful also for helping all of those who are active in a campaign, maybe to respond to people who challenge you on streets, on public events. So that could be maybe a helpful tool to deal with this, what can be expected at the level of the European Union in the Parliament or the Commission, challenges. Yeah, so and I think maybe a smaller group can put things together, and answering this could be a very helpful tool for motivation and also, let's say, common understanding. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Michael. And last but not least, I would like to ask Paolo Naldini from Fondazione Epistoletto to give some concluding remarks about the importance of this call to action.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes,
okay.
We can.
I feel so privileged and honored to be part of this amazing group of people, persons, and organizations engaged, committed, with such passion and intelligence on this. I am thankful to all of you and to my friend Walter. And we shared some of the symbols and artifacts we came up with in our Contemporary Art Foundation. And this you have probably seen. It is the 3 circles that we have made reference to since the start of this program that we embarked upon together with Walter and most of you a couple of years ago. This symbol represents 3 circles, and you can see that the 2 opposite circles, we have written io and tu, means I and you, and the central circle is noi, it means us. So it is a symbol that wants to represent that in oppositions and differences, there is the possibility for us to meet in a central space where we can do together, we can co-create. Co-creation is a buzzword that has been said this morning oftentimes. And this symbol wants exactly to mean that. But not only me and you, it is all potential oppositions, even one that I think is very important for us now and in the coming campaign. It is between the mind and the heart. Mind and heart is what make us humans. Both of them we need in all things we do. And oftentimes we give more prevalence and preeminence to the mind and to the rationality. But that's not enough. We are emotional animals. We need to claim back the space of emotion for us and even in our public sphere. It is unfortunate that we have left that to fear, to hate, but because that is not all of us. Our mind and our heart are made from so many deep feelings that bind us together and that push us to do the things we're doing. So let's claim back these feelings and allow ourselves to feel joy and sisterhood and brotherhood and justice and the need or even trench for justice, which is what most of us feel, and that it's because most of us are here and they do what they do in their life. I think that most of the people we will talk to will have this opportunity talking with us and engaging with us to reactivate this part of their life that has been potentially silenced, intimidated by other emotions or by only the rationality. We need both. We need a central space. And then we will be able to recognize ourselves in the other, like in front of a mirror, as I am now, where I can see myself with my friends, Sofia and Luca, who joined me for this just a quick hello to everybody of you. But their space and my space is the same. So I recognize me in the other and the other in me. So I think we are engaging or embarking on a travel that could really mark a different passage in our being participants of this union that really needs us profoundly. And it needs our heart as much as it needs our brain. And we've heard a lot of it this morning, and I think it is the best possible way to start. Thank you very, very, very much.
Grazie, Paolo.
Thank you very much, Paolo. Excellent. So just for clarification, the presentation has, or the meeting, the webinar today has been recorded, and it will be shared with all the registered participants. All the presentations that have been shown during the webinar will be as well shared with you, as well as a document regrouping all the 60+ questions that you have asked in the question and answer. So thank you so much for being active. We still have a couple more minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them there. And if we don't have the time now in the last 4 minutes to answer them, we will come back to you by email. And of course, in the document where we will gather all the questions, they will be there. And don't forget, check out, I will pin Saverio, because our next important moment besides the 7th of January will be on the 14th of January at Place de Luxembourg in Brussels at 12 o'clock. Do you want to say a word now, Saverio?
Well, just to remember, this is important moment because it's the moment that we show to the European Parliament that we are doing the things and we are doing well, and we want to bring ahead this idea that is not just a petition, as someone said before, but is a real right that we can try to put on the floor for the future of Europe. Thanks to everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So yes, I think we just came to an end, and I would like to thank all our panelists to be with us, to have accepted to speak today and be with us today. And of course, all the participants who made it possible to come today. And for those ones as well who have registered but could not make it because of the very busy times at the end of the year. But we will continue. There will be several other occasions as well when we will have the possibility to exchange. And we will follow up as well regarding the national focal points and all other activities. So please, let's stay in touch. And we are just starting now.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy holiday. And viva the right to food. Let's do it, guys.
Viva.
Together.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks also, Lily, for
Grazie,
facilitating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
Cheers.
Thank
Ciao,
you, everyone.
ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.